G'day, welcome to Plugged In Australia Quick Charge, the shorter version of the show for when you want the main EV news without the full deep dive. And this is episode 85 for Monday, the 17th of August 2026. And here in Western Sydney and most of Sydney, I think, it's a pretty wet and soggy day, but the rain is welcomed most of the time. It's a little bit hard to swallow when it's for a very long time, but we definitely do need rain. It's what keeps the world spinning, as they say. Today, Skyworth puts its Australian passenger car plans on the back burner. We take a proper look at who is behind a new survey on the barriers to buying an EV. Tesla widens vehicle-to-load access in America, and Denza's Z9GT clears a major Australian hurdle, and Chery firms up timing for its affordable Q electric hatch. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, first up, Skyworth's planned entry into Australia's electric passenger car market has been pushed to the back burner yet again. The BE11 mid-sized SUV was originally supposed to arrive under the Skyworth name as the ET5 in late 2024. It was then renamed the Skyworth BE11 and delayed until early 2026 for an upgraded 800-volt electrical system, some more safety equipment, and it was hoped an NCAP rating. That timetable has now been abandoned, obviously, and there's no replacement launch date. The head of local distributor EV Automotive says the BE11 is still under consideration, but it is no longer a major priority. Plans for the smaller Skyworth Q hatch have also gone quiet. Instead, the company is concentrating on electric commercial vehicles, particularly the Skyworth 233 Hong2 van, which could reach Australia later this year. Local approval documents cover a 5.49 metre low roof van and a 5.99 metre high roof version. Both use a 150 kilowatt motor, a 100.96 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery, and a 4,495 kilogram GVM. Their calculated nominal payloads are 1,910 and 1,695 kilos respectively, and the manufacturer claims more than 400 kilometres of range. So Skyworth has not been abandoned in Australia. It's decided that building a business around vans is more realistic than launching another unfamiliar electric SUV into an already overcrowded market. The difficulty is underlined by the UK, where the BE11 importer recently ceased operating after selling only 127 vehicles. Smart move, I think. A new survey says purchase price, not range or public charging, is the biggest factor influencing whether Australians will buy an EV. Conjointly has now published the actual results, which provide considerably more context than the media headline. First, who paid for the research? No outside commissioner or funder is identified. The questions were included in the July wave of Conjointly's own brand tracker, a commercial research product operated by the Sydney-based company. Conjointly does say that businesses can sponsor research in categories it does not already cover, so outside sponsorship is possible within the wider platform. However, no car maker, charging company, oil company, government agency, or advocacy group is disclosed as sponsoring these particular EV questions. I think there still is a commercial motive. Conjointly publishes topical findings through free, media-friendly data stories and then promotes its paid brand tracker access and custom research services. Its EV results page even finishes by encouraging businesses to book a call and start tracking their own category. So this appears to be partly a branding and content marketing exercise, produce a topical result, attract media coverage, and demonstrate what the company's research platform can do. Now, that does not mean the results were fabricated or deliberately manipulated. I found no evidence of a hidden pro-EV or anti-EV agenda, but it does help explain why the most newsworthy interpretation has been promoted so heavily. The survey covered 1,464 Australian adults through July. Respondents came from online panel networks with demographic quotas and post-survey weighting, intended to make the result more representative of the Australian population. The first question asked how likely respondents were to purchase an EV as their next vehicle. 31% selected very unlikely or never. 16% were somewhat unlikely. 25% were undecided. And 19% were somewhat likely. 9% were very likely. Now that gives a combined positive response of 27% compared with 48% on the negative side. Importantly, the survey defined an EV as either a battery electric vehicle or a plug-in hybrid. Now, those are very different propositions when it comes to range, charging, and everyday use. so it cannot be treated as a pure battery electric purchase intention figure. The second question is where the media headline becomes a little bit more questionable. Respondents were shown 13 prompted factors and asked to rank the ones influencing their decision. 27% placed purchase price at number 1. Environmental impact, trust in EVs, and running and maintenance costs each received 9%. Range and battery technology received 7%, while charging infrastructure also got another 7%. So price was clearly the most commonly selected number 1 factor, but the survey did not simply ask what is stopping you from buying an EV. It asked people to rank a prepared list of influences, and the media then focused only on which factor each respondent placed first. Range and charging were also separated into 2 categories. Taken together, 14% placed either range and battery technology or charging infrastructure first, still well below price, but not insignificant. 27% is also a plurality, not a majority. It means almost 3/4 of respondents ranked something else first. The survey included all Australian adults rather than only people currently shopping for a new car, and it measured stated intentions rather than actual purchasing behaviour. It therefore cannot prove that cutting EV prices would automatically produce a matching increase in sales. And my read is that the research is pretty legitimate, and the finding that upfront price matters enormously is entirely believable. But the strongest conclusion supported by the data is that the purchase price was the most frequently ranked number 1 factor among this particular list. That does not prove that range and charging have stopped being major barriers, and it certainly does not justify pretending that affordability is the only thing holding Aussies back. The underlying survey is pretty useful. The headline says considerably more than the results actually establish. Tesla has expanded vehicle-to-load capability across more of the Model Y range in the United States. The American Tesla store now lists its $80 outlet adapter as compatible with the Model Y Premium, Model Y Performance, and obviously the Cybertruck. It works through Tesla's 3rd generation mobile connector and supplies up to 2.4 kilowatts at 120 volts and 20 amps. That's enough for camping equipment, refrigerator, or many power tools, but it's not vehicle to home or vehicle to grid. It gives you a portable outlet, not an approved whole home backup system. Compatibility also depends on the vehicle's hardware, so owners of earlier Model Ys shouldn't assume a software update will add the feature. Tesla checks the car's VIN when an owner orders the adapter. But for Australia, the story is a bit different. Tesla already sells a 145 Australian outlet adapter that plugs directly into the charge port. Because it runs at 230 volts, it is rated at up to 3.45 kilowatts through a 15 amp outlet or 2.3 kilowatts through a standard 10 amp outlet. At the time of recording, Tesla's Australian store still says the adapter is compatible only with the 6-seat Model Y L, and it is listed as out of stock. There is no confirmed Australian expansion to the regular Model Y Premium or Performance. It is a positive sign, however, that Tesla is finally treating V2L as a mainstream feature, but the rollout is American news for now. Tesla also warns that damage caused by third-party bidirectional adapters will not be covered by the vehicle warranty. The 2 Denza stories this week that I thought I'd bundle together because they're at very different levels of certainty. The Z9GT electric Grand Tourer has now cleared Australian design rule approval, removing one of the final regulatory hurdles before its local launch. The Australian paperwork confirms a pretty big car, 5,180mm long, 1,990 wide, and 1,490 high, and it sits on a 3,125mm wheelbase. Tare mass is 2,930 kilograms, GVM is 3,400 kilos, and ground clearance is a mere 125mm. It is also not rated to tow a trailer. A brake trailer, I should say. That 470 kilogram gap between the Tare and the Gross is worth noticing. Put 5 75 kilo adults aboard and only 95 kilogram remains for luggage and accessories. That's provided you weigh 75 kilos. I'm just a smidge over 100, so If you take 5 of me, not only are you not putting anything else in the car, you're going to be overweight. The approved tri-motor version produces 850 kilowatts and a claimed 1,210 newton meters of torque with 0 to 100 k's an hour in 2.7 seconds. Denza's Australian site lists 820 kilometres of range on the generous Chinese CLTC cycle and a 10 to 97% charge in about 9 minutes when connected to its full power flash charging system. Australian pricing is still unconfirmed, so estimates above 100 grand remain estimates. I can't see it being under that. The first flash chargers are planned for selected Denza dealerships in Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide. Meanwhile, Chinese regulatory filings have revealed the new Denza N8 electric SUV. The 5-seat N8 measures 5,150 millimetres long, 1,999 wide and 1,820 high. Rear-wheel drive versions produce either 320 or 370 kilowatts, while the flagship uses 1 front and 2 rear motors for a combined 890 kilowatts. Battery choices are approximately 105.8 and 130.2 kilowatt hours, with claimed CLTC ranges of 800 to 1,003 kilometres, depending on the version, and it will use second-generation blade batteries and flash charging. The important Australian caveat is that Denza has not confirmed the N8 for this market. Reports suggest an Australian price of about 150 grand. Again, just speculation, not anything firm or in concrete. For now, the Z9GT is firming up even more, and the N8 is a pretty powerful model overseas and something that I'm pretty confident Denza would be considering here in Australia. And finally, Chery has narrowed the Australian launch timing for its small Q electric hatch to arrive around the middle of 2027. The Q, also known as the QQ3 in China, will sit below the current Chery E5 and challenge affordable electric cars such as the BYD Atto 1 and Geely EX2. Chery Australia says a starting price beginning with a 2 is not out of the question, but it is far too early to treat the widely suggested $27,990 figure as confirmed pricing. The higher spec Chinese versions use a 41.3 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery and a rear-mounted motor producing 90 kilowatts and 150 newton meters. Its 420 kilometre CLTC range would probably translate to roughly 350 kilometres under the WLTP testing. It measures 4,195 millimetres long, 1,811 wide and about 1,574 high, sitting on a 2,700mm wheelbase. Now that makes it closer in size to a BYD Dolphin than the smaller Atto 1. China also receives a cheaper 29.5 kilowatt-hour version with a 58 kilowatt motor and 310 kilometers of CLTC range. Our most favourite range type CLTC, followed closely by NEDC. As I'm obviously being a bit tongue-in-cheek there, so take all those CLTC and NEDC range figures with a grain of salt there and wait until you see some WLTP figures to get a little bit more accuracy. Australia's battery choice is not yet known. In other right-hand drive markets, the Q offers 85 kilowatt DC charging, a 30 to 80% recharge in about 16.5 minutes, 6.6 kilowatt AC charging and vehicle to load. Again, Australian details remain unconfirmed. By the time it arrives, the bottom end of our EV market will be far more competitive than it is today, and Chery will need more than a sub $30,000 price sticker. The local specification, safety rating, charging performance and warranty, they're really going to decide whether the Q is genuinely good value. And that is a wrap for episode 85 on Monday the 17th of August 2026. As always, appreciate your time in listening. Hopefully you learned something today. Any feedback, info@pluggedinaustralia.com.au. Until the next time, stay plugged in and stay charged. Ci vediamo.